Oh, hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry we're a little bit late. This is the Rebel Roundup, but it is Wednesday, which means it's Western Wednesdays, which means this is the Buffalo panel. I'm your host, Sheila Gunn Reid. We're going to talk about Western issues, at least for the first half an hour. And on Wednesdays, as always, I'm joined by my beautiful real-life best friend from Regina, Saskatchewan, Lise Merle, who is going to sign off about 10 minutes early because she has a very important thing to do. And I can tell by your jacket that it is important. Lise, how's it going?
Well, they say fake it till you make it. So this is what we're going with today. This is the look we're going with, but it's Western Wednesday here on the Rebel Roundup, and I just can't wait to get into our Western topics.
Yes, I'll tell everybody how they can get involved in the show real quick, and then we'll bring in our two panelists, a duo. But if you're watching us on Rumble, excellent free speech platform. If you want to leave a Rumble rant, that's their paid chat over there to support the show, because we'll never take a penny from the government to do the work that we do. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, we are hereby reading it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our very best to get to it. And as I said, Lise has to sign off 10 minutes early, but I'll finish the chats on my own. If you are watching us on YouTube, their paid chat is called a super chat. And if you miss a live version of the show, you can leave a paid comment called a super thanks. And we thank you for choosing us, because Mark Carney doesn't give you a choice with the mainstream media. He just yanks your money and gives it to Rosie Barton. So we're not like that. Let's bring in our panelists. If you are in Alberta and you know these guys, they are heavily on the independence beat. It's Mike and James from the Critical Compass. Guys, thanks for joining the show. Is this the first time that you've been on? I think it is, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
First time on. Thanks for letting us join.
Yeah, right on. So if you haven't watched the show, and you guys better have watched the show, basically we just talk about the issues of the day facing Alberta and the West writ large. And we'll go through some clips and then we'll react to them. But you guys know the news just as much as I know the news. 301,000 signatures for Alberta independence delivered to Elections Alberta HQ on, what was that, Monday already? It feels like a week ago, but also feels like today. Completely historic day. But what you see there is Elections Alberta packing up the boxes, 301,000 signatures worth of them. There's Mitch Sylvester, the progenitor of the independence question, packing them up in evidence tape, because the verification of those signatures is held up thanks to a court challenge from a handful of activist Indigenous chiefs for, I guess, kind of the unknown future. And really, time is of the essence, because we only have a few months until October 19th to make the case for Western independence. Guys, reactions?
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. It's sort of I'm sure you're familiar with Eva Chipiak. Eva's talked about this a lot. Like, there's this notion that first of all, there's this notion that the Indigenous chiefs or rather that the Indigenous groups are a monolith and they all believe the same thing and they all are opposed to independence, when really it's a very small minority of some chiefs that are trying to make it seem like asking a question about the Constitution is unconstitutional in and of itself. And it's sort of, I'm actually quite surprised that our courts are paying this as much reverence as they are.
Yeah. James?
So this is not the only pathway, this citizen petition. Daniel Smith could just call an election at any time. So there's a lot of political pressure for something to happen, even if it's held up in courts. So the signatures themselves were weighed. Mitch signed off on them, and then they're sealed. So if there's any discrepancies later, like they have that evidence that, well, we know the count from Mitch, and that's why they declared that affidavit of the signature count and the letter to Daniel Smith. So that should start. That's a loud enough message that the ball's in her court, regardless of what happens with the official count of this petition.
Yeah, and Mitch did say that because of the care that they took in collecting these signatures, they expect very little attrition of those 301,000 signatures. And, for those people who are saying, well, I forget their stupid name, the Remain petition canvassers,
Forever
Forever
Canada.
Canadian.
Forever
Yeah.
Canada,
Yeah.
Luke Hazek's group. They did it in the height of summer when it was like super nice, and there were people outside because there's like nobody outside in the winter here. I think it's a remarkable thing that the Stay Free Alberta folks were able to garner this many signatures in the dead of winter using 7,000 volunteers, minus 40 on the roadsides. And there's also a chill over this that Keith Wilson has talked about, that Eva Chipiuk has talked about, Jeffrey Rath has talked about. A lot of people are willing to vote for independence in a ballot booth, but they are frightened of putting their name on a list of signatures given to elections bureaucrats after seeing what happened to the Freedom Convoy. Lise?
Well, even though the number is reflective of the circumstances where the collection of signatures were taking place, there's a whole bunch of things that we have going for us in this next several months. One of them is summer. Okay, the people of Alberta are all going to be outside, and maybe if Mitch Sylvester and other organizers can pivot those 7,000 canvas takers into 7,000 ambassadors for Alberta, or even more. Even more, every resident of Alberta should become an Alberta ambassador in these next several months. And it'll be really, really interesting to see what happens come October. But I mean, I see this is daisies for Alberta. Now that this big part has been done, on to the next part of the job, guys.
Yeah.
Who better for it than the people of Alberta?
Right. And it's a big job. Like, the next part is actually, I think, probably the hard part, is convincing the maybes and even the hard no's that this is their one chance to, as Ezra says, send those bastards a message in Ottawa. Because what we know from exclusive Act for Alberta polling data, and again, I'll make the full disclaimer here, I'm the authorized agent for the third-party advertiser group Act for Alberta. We know that even the hard no's also dislike Ottawa. so there's some wiggle room there.
Yeah.
And I have
there are points of entry into this conversation, even with the hard no people. And I would just start with the tens of thousands of dollars that each of them would get in their pocket if Ottawa was not a consideration. I'd start there. I'd literally start with the bags of gold and be like, this could be yours.
And just on the Indigenous issue, I have a story coming out later on this week based on that exclusive Act for Alberta polling data. And you guys are exactly right. Mike, especially you, on the Indigenous issue there, most definitely, surprisingly, not a monolith, but also unsurprising when you think about people who have been mistreated by the federal government and abused by the status quo for generations and generations. Their sentiments on independence, pretty surprising when compared to the general population. I'll just leave it there. Let's go to this clip on Prime Minister Mark Carney. He was asked about the 301,000 signatures, which, as Ezra points out, is more than people who voted for the Liberals in the last election here in Alberta. That's kind of a remarkable statistic, but let's hear what Mark Carney has to say.
Alberta separatists say they have more than 300,000 signatures to potentially trigger a referendum vote. What will you do to stop that referendum from winning?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is again, keeping with the discussion today, there's the rule of law, there's the Clarity Act, which has been opined upon by the Supreme Court, not at the same time when Madame Orbour was sitting on the Supreme Court, but has been the judgment passed there, and any referenda in any part of Canada need to be consistent with that. As you know as well, there's a judicial challenge separately but relatedly by Indigenous nations in Alberta regarding the question. So those processes have to be followed through. But if you bring it into, so I'm observing that because of the solemnity of the moment that we're observing today and celebrating today. But if you bring it into my day-to-day responsibilities and those of the government, it's to continue to act as we have from the start, which is in the spirit of cooperative federalism, making the country work, making it work for Albertans, making it work for the for Indigenous peoples, making it work for all Canadians. Thank you.
As a Western separatist, I hope he never changes. When he says stuff like, we continue to act as we have from the start,
That's the
we
whole
need to
problem.
clip that and put that on the billboard truck, because that's exactly the problem, is that you continue to act the way you have from the start, so much so that we want to leave Confederation. We want to do this unprecedented thing to extract ourselves from an institution we've been a part of for 121 years. We are ready to shed the shackles of Confederation. And he says, you know what we're going to do? A heck of a lot more of the same. We'll go to Mike first.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like we've had you guys probably know Marty up north, Marty Belanger.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
had him on the show a lot, and he told us that when he was out canvassing, he could tell the exact days when Carney said something stupid on TV or the radio, because his signature counts like doubled and tripled that day for people. So yeah, so that's perfect. He needs to keep doing exactly what he's doing. To your point earlier, and to what Carney said as well, the notion that the Indigenous in Alberta are properly treated by their treaties, they're properly taken care of by the federal government, is nonsense. I mean, there's people in Alberta that are living below the poverty line. There's clean water issues like we see in Manitoba and other provinces. The idea that the average Indigenous person wouldn't view independence as a beautiful opportunity to renegotiate better deals, have better people administrating their treaties is crazy. Like, that's, to me, that seems like the obvious play is use this as an opportunity to maybe get a little bit of control over your own lives that you're not presented now by the federal government, that likes to keep you in this horrible situation that the average Indigenous person is in.
Well, and you know, the most Indigenous industry, and the statistics show this out, the most Indigenous industry in this country by representation of employment is the oil and gas sector. In fact, more people work in the Indigenous sector, like it's outsized by the percentage of the population. Why? Because those jobs are in their communities, in partnership with oil and gas companies. And yet the federal government continues to hinder their way out of generational poverty by blocking oil and gas development. Yeah, I mean, the Liberals really have to pick a lane on this. Either you are a good steward of the treaties or you are guilty of genocide. And they can't have it both ways. Now they're saying it both ways, but if you are guilty of genocide, why wouldn't you let the victims of your genocide chart a better way forward for themselves? James, your reaction?
Well, and he's saying that he's going to continue to do what they've done, which is it's not within the spirit of Confederation. The federal government has been acting like a parent, and the provinces are essentially the children. And a lot of people don't actually understand that they're supposed to be on the same level of authority, that they're each, like the provinces and the federal government, are all sovereign within their own jurisdictions. It's not a parent-child relationship. But Carney, him saying that, I think it's pretty clear that he's going to continue to act as a parent, trying to steer the provinces and essentially just jump into a jurisdiction that isn't within the federal purviews.
Lise.
Well, what I heard him do was propagandize the gullible masses that watch the mainstream media in Canada by quoting the Clarity Act. Well, sir, the Clarity Act did exactly what its name implies, is it made it clear what has to happen for a province to walk away from Confederation. And what the Clarity Act says is that Indigenous people must be consulted, not we require Indigenous consent, which is what Mark Carney sort of suggested there by being, active in in a legal challenge. So go through them, Alberta, go right through them. I mean, Mark Carney, you think Mark Carney is going to come along and give you permission to do what you're doing? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, he's going to do everything in his power to throw up roadblocks in your way. And this is just one of them. So we just have to, I think our job here is to educate the public in what your actual wins are going to be by saying goodbye to Ottawa.
Well, and Corey Morgan from the Western Standard, he's really done some strong research on this, and it is true. One Albertan, regardless of where you live or where you're from, one vote. That's it. We're all the same. We all get the same say at the ballot box, and these chiefs are actually trying to undermine our ability to have a free and fair referendum. This from every time something says researchers say, I'm instantly skeptical. Instantly. This is from the Globe and Mail. Foreign actors exploiting Alberta separatist debate to stoke discord, researchers say. Olivia, can you put that up on the screen? Are you asleep at the switch, Olivia?
No.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Can you scroll down? This is Grant Robertson at the Globe and Mail. And stop. Earlier this year, Canadian researchers who track online influence campaign and foreign interference happened upon something peculiar. Really? They just stumbled across it by accident. Using artificial intelligence to catalog the activity of Russian websites and social media accounts known to be spreading disinformation about the invasion of Ukraine, researchers noticed a new topic suddenly garnering more attention than it had ever from those groups. Alberta. Between late December and late April, references to Alberta separatism and various related themes, including talk of the province becoming a U.S. state and Canada failing as a country, rose sharply from known Russian content farms. During those 4 months, Alberta was the focus of 67 items produced and distributed by Pravda Network.
67?
Nearly 5 times more than other Canada-related topics. Could it be that we're just interesting? Like 67 mentions over 4 months has sent these researchers into a tizzy. I want to know the amount of the grant that they received for this. But could it be that we're just an interesting topic of Canadian news and that Canada as a failed state is garnering international attention, including from Pravda? I'll go to James first.
Well, I think they're mixing up like causation and like
Right.
what the actual source of this is. Alberta, we are doing something unprecedented in the way that this movement it's grown to a point that I don't think anybody's predicted. And therefore it makes perfect sense that you're going to have a lot of buzz, a lot of discussion in the United States, in Russia, in Europe. People are looking at Alberta and they're feeling hopeful that, well, here Albertans are standing up and we're not taking it anymore. And I think that's going to garner a lot of attention.
Sure. I mean, the same research could be done on Fox News. The same research could be done on CBC. It's an international story. And of course, you're going to see an uptick in news related to those things. I can't believe somebody got paid to research this. I'm in the wrong business doing an honest day's work every day. Mike?
Yeah, we talk about these things called thought terminating cliches, and there's this trope in Western media right now where if anything that happens to be inconvenient to the regime gets too popular, they just slap it with oh, this is Russian disinformation. This is botted. This is AI. There's these, and then the average person, maybe the average liberal or the average non-politically engaged person, will look at that and see, oh, Alberta independence movement, that's just Russian bots. That's just Russian and then they don't have to think about it anymore,
Right.
So it's actually really nefarious the way they do that. And I posted something about that on our Twitter this morning when I saw it, because I had the same reaction. And there was a comment on it that was really good. That was like, Putin is fighting a war right now against all of the UN, and these people think that he cares about Alberta. It's like,
Right.
Yes.
This is nonsense.
I've just responded. I just started responding to people in Russian. Like, so just on X, I'm like, yeah, you found me out.
Hitting the translate button.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I have a story about how this sort of thing happens. I was on an airplane on my birthday on the way back from a Rebel Christmas party in December. And I sat next to this guy who was Sheila Gunn Reid. Can I tell this story?
Sure.
Well, this is how it works on the other side. Who was just exhausted after coming home from a round trip, a whirlwind round trip to Europe. And, just getting buckled in and putting my stuff away. So, what would demand you fly all the way to Europe for just a quick conversation? He's just so exhausted. And well, I was talking about misinformation. I was like, oh, to who? And he told me. Then he's just all very so tired, so exhausted. And he never did ask me where I worked. And if he had, I would have said Rebel News. But if you're wondering how our government communicates with these foreign governments about misinformation, it's exactly like that, guys.
Right.
It's exactly
There's a
like
whole
that. So please don't talk to me. Yeah, please don't talk to me about your 64 mentions when you're sending guys to have critical conversations on the taxpayer dime about misinformation.
Right. There's an entire industry of misinformation debunkers, and they get wealthy accusing people of being Russian bots when you're like, I'm right. Like I'm here on TV every day. Like I'm real.
Or in the airplane seat beside you.
Exactly. President Trump, this is from Jason Kenney, who has become the most vicious federalist these days, calling people kooks and crazies, and apparently all of a sudden concerned about privacy, which is a striking turn of events since he made me tell my vaccination status to the bartender down at the sports bar at the golf simulator during COVID. Anyway, he's all concerned about privacy, but he's also like full Trump derangement syndrome. There's this video of him saying that President Trump reportedly offered cold hard cash to Albertans to vote for independence, and he's speaking of disinformation. Let's watch Jason Kenney make the argument for Canada.
I am concerned that if this gets on the ballot and it ends up on Fox News every day, the president is going to see this and he will have a hard time resisting the temptation to create mischief on this, leaning into it. I can see him making offers of absolving Alberta's debt. I hope the prime minister raises it with him directly and says, look, I'm not going to advocate that Alaska be annexed by Canada or there should be a referendum for, like, this is just, you cannot do this. It goes too far. I hope that there's some direct words shared on this, that this would be like a bridge too far. I am concerned.
Okay, so we would annex Alaska in return with what? The tampons in the men's room? We're just going to show up and throw frozen tampons at the Alaskans and they're going to just run into the sea? Like what is he even talking about? But also, I do hope President Trump offers me those things. Like I'm listening if he does. I realize that it would be foreign interference, but if he said, we'll absolve your debt, and we'll, put you on our dollar. We'll take your Alberta dollar at par.
Stop.
Talk
Sweet
to me louder.
nothings. Like just whisper them in my ear. My goodness.
Like I don't think Jason Kenney understands the audience of Albertans. We don't viscerally hate the Americans. We are not those Eastern elbows up boomers. We actually think of ourselves as cultural cousins with our Americans, as opposed to, looking down our smug Laurentian noses at the Americans as slack-jawed yokels and hillbillies. We like the Americans. My son just got back from Montana and he's like, that could be us. The Eastern liberals keep ruining things for us. He's like, there were people with guns on their hips at the grocery store and it was just the Valhalla of Zen. And he was so happy. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this idea that you can scare Albertans by saying, throwing the US or Trump around, it's not a thing. People actually don't realize that a lot of the early Alberta settlement in the 1800s and early 1900s actually came from American ranchers moving up to the great ranch land here. So we sort of have that streak in our cultural
DNA.
zeitgeist. Yeah, it is there. And I mean, there's all people act as well like this, national projects and secession and stuff, like it's this crazy thing, but it happens all the time. Like we're only like 25, 30 years removed from the Balkans completely disintegrating into like six or seven different countries. It's
Right.
not, it's not
Oh, I'm
this
so
this
happy you said
wild
that.
notion. Yeah, it happens and it's normal, and it's actually like, I can't remember who it was. Maybe James remembers who we were talking to. Like, Canada is such a huge country filled with such different personalities and different types of people. It's actually like, it actually doesn't make much sense that we've managed to stay united for so long, considering the
Mm.
disparity in the average Canadian from such different parts of this huge country.
James?
Yeah, it's worth pointing out also that for the majority of the people who support Alberta independence, this is not a 51st state movement. There was
No.
some initial exploration of that, and even Jeff Rath, early 2025, that was before Carney won the election. Jeff Rath had some conversations and some talks about being the 51st state. He went and spoke with the U.S. administration, and then after that, like, it was more exploring options, and the consensus from the movement was, no, we don't want to replace one master 3,000 kilometers away with another in Washington. So the only issue with this rhetoric is that even though a lot of us know that not to take everything that Trump says literally, this is easy ammo for people who are obsessed about Trump. They will take these comments and they'll use any little mention as proof that either this is a 51st state movement or this is an existential threat that needs to be met with whatever emergency powers, or you can see how this snowballs into a justification for them doing whatever they can to protect Canada. So it gets very tricky in this sense.
Sure. And it is true that the majority of Western separatists, they just want to be free. They don't want to be Americans. They want to be Albertans. But it is necessary for the Americans to recognize a free and independent Alberta. That's how you become a country, is if another country says, yeah, they're a country. We saw that happen in real time over recent months with Somaliland. The Israelis recognized it, and I think it was the UAE very recently. They're a real fully formed country now, just because somebody else said, yeah, they're one of us, it's fine. So that's an important piece of work, I think, that Jeffrey Rath did by going to Washington. But yeah, you will see it spun by the Federalists as the existential threat of the Orange Man in the White House or in Mar-a-Lago. And I think to some extent it will work, because we saw it work in the last election. Lise?
Well, I know if given the choice between President Donald Trump in the United States or a childless dude in a too tight suit, I'm going to pick Trump. Jason Kenney.
Yeah. He's creepy, isn't he? He's a creepy man.
I can't tell you the things that were running through my head when we were just forced to listen to him talk.
Here's the thing. A normal person with a healthy amount of shame would have never shown his face in polite company ever again after what happened with his leadership under the UCP. He was thrown out on his ass by his former donors, volunteers, sign captains, people who worked their asses off to get him elected, completely rejected him because they saw him as somebody who could talk a good game, but when his values and principles were put to the test, he didn't have any. He could talk about religious freedom all day long when he was the point person for Stephen Harper on that, to the point where he probably is unable to visit China anymore, given his advocacy on behalf of religious minorities there, including the Christians and Uyghurs. But when it came to defending religious freedom here in Alberta from the overreach of the state, he was the state overreaching. So, and like a normal person would be like, well, I tried that and that didn't go well. I'll just go off to be an expensive, overpaid, well-connected consultant somewhere and be perfectly happy. But that guy just can't stop sticking his face in front of the camera.
And that's the part that they don't ask. It's like, Jason Kenney, what is your motivation for being here and saying these things? Like, of course he has his own reasons. Like, of course he does.
Yeah.
Nice little redemption arc he tried there.
Yeah. And I saw his post about his big concern about his privacy after his allegedly his data being shown on a screen meeting with the Centurion Project, and I'm trying not to wade too deep into that, but my only bone of contention there with Jason Kenney is, I would be appalled to have my information shown on a screen, including my home address, or even worse, my medical information, to the entire world, which is what he did to Albertans just trying to live their lives. Before we let these guys go, because we're a little bit over time still, I just want to show this video of Daniel Smith, who I think is striking the exact right tone on youth unemployment. I had the Act for Alberta billboard truck out yesterday in front of one of the worst offenders of the temporary foreign worker program, the Tim Hortons. We took that dang thing right through the drive-through. I don't care. Yes.
You got in under the bar? Like it's under the height limit?
No, we found a Tim Hortons without a bar. And I was like, you're going to have to make a tight turn, but it might take 3 tries, but we did it. We did it. I have that video to come. But anyways, Danielle Smith is talking about youth unemployment. Let's watch this video and then quickly react.
Big stores. There are other two. Yeah. Misleading. I thought it was small when I came in. Huge.
Yeah. Young Canadians with jobs.
They're also my nieces. Oh, awesome. How many employees do you have? 23. Oh, that's a lot too. Including the yard staff.
You scan the barcode, and then right here it'll show up 7B2.
Yeah. And then look at the type. Is it this? 2-handle kitchen faucet.
Yes.
Aha.
That's it.
Got it. Should I do a few? Because there's another one here.
Yeah. So
should I try to get all of them, or does it matter? Are you just using this as a location finder?
Yeah. So.
And then I'm looking at 42. It must be there because it's totally empty. Man, all right.
Look at that.
You're awesome. Great trainer.
So she says Alberta's youth unemployment rate is too high, with a steep increase in temporary foreign workers in recent years. Young Albertans are too often being overlooked for entry-level jobs. Tim Hortons, Lube City. I was grateful to meet a few of these hardworking young Albertans at Home Hardware in Cardston recently. In response, Alberta's UCP government launched the Alberta Youth Employment Incentive to help youth enter the workplace. This program will enable approximately 3,500 businesses to hire up to 8,750 youth in Alberta. I like this idea, but I hope it is not abused by youth who are living in Alberta but not residents of Alberta, which is really the problem. There are a lot of young people working at the Tim Hortons. They're just not from here. And these employers who abuse these programs, I just hope they don't abuse this. And I hope the province has taken appropriate steps to make sure that that doesn't happen, because youth unemployment, like kids 15 to 19, 20%, like 20%, that's outrageous. And the general youth unemployment rate is like 13, almost 14%. And it's because we have imported a slave underclass, which is driving down wages and the cost of everything else up. Mike, you?
Yeah, I often like to turn this issue back onto leftists who talk about, who don't see an issue with how we've been treating the TFW program, and just basically point out, like, listen, would it be acceptable to you if a white business owner, bought out nearly an entire franchise chain and only hired white members of his family to work there? Or would you say that that might be racist? And so that kind of forces them to think, like, listen, this is actually exactly like what you said. We can't be mincing words about it. Like, this is literally importing a slave underclass of wage workers to work for the lowest possible wages. They would rather do that. Of course, it's in the business's interest to do that rather than pay a normal North American salary, but approach it from the race standpoint. I mean, we don't accept this type of racial hiring practice for anything else, and so I don't know why it's acceptable this way. This doesn't have anything to do with individual persons who happen to be Indian or Filipino or whatever the immigrant du jour is. It's just a commentary on what is, if you claim to be equitable and inclusive, what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah. And I'm of the opinion, I don't care where the temporary foreign workers are from. You just
Yeah.
have to go. Sorry,
Yeah.
you have to go. Canadian youth need these jobs. You have to go. James?
Well, and part of the justification is that, well, they will claim that they couldn't find workers locally. And with unemployment at this level, that is not an accurate statement, and that doesn't reflect reality. And what they'll do is they will do their little study. They'll say that, okay, well, we had this many job postings, and we didn't get anybody hiring. But what they'll do is they'll either post it at a rate. The trucking industry does this. They'll say, like, you need to drive this many kilometers, or this is what your pay is, and they'll post a almost absurdly unattractive job posting, and then they don't get anybody who wants to get paid pennies for that.
Right.
And then they'll use that for justification for the temporary foreign workers. So they're abusing the study part of it, and they're abusing the application aspect.
Lise?
Well, I not only think that this program is necessary by Danielle Smith on a provincial level just to counter what's happening on the federal level, but it's necessary for young people because you take a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old with a safe food certificate and throw them into what would be a foreign workplace in most of these other places where they would be in the linguistic minority, the religious minority, the racial minority, where they would be an absolute outsider in some of these institutions that only hire temporary foreign workers. And so this is, I sort of view what Danielle Smith is doing as a necessary counter to what the federal government is doing, because the kids of Alberta deserve every opportunity to succeed. And step one of that means getting them into the workforce in jobs that are safe and appropriate for them. So good for her.
Yeah, and you have to look at the long-term ramifications of an entire generation not knowing how to work. So what does that mean for the Canadian economy going forward when you don't have a managerial class that has ever learned how to work?
Sure.
You look at the life skills that you garner from your first job. What does that do to the productivity of the economy in 20 years when you have an entire segment, an entire demographic that is just completely missing from the economy? It's catastrophic.
Let us not forget that these are the same generation of kids that were in COVID told to stay home. The safest place for them is on their phones. You can't see your friends. No, you can't do normal things. So our kids are actually at a unique disadvantage in this situation, Canadian kids. And again, this is a correction. This is a necessary correction to get them out there and experienced with the world, because they were denied it for so long.
Yeah, there's a reason the Zoomers are the most conservative generation since World War II. And it's because they're living with the fallout of this mess. It is 11:44 Alberta time. I am going to make a suggestion that we'll say goodbye to our panelists from the Critical Compass, but not quite yet. And also say goodbye to Lise at the exact same time, because we're hitting an ad break anyway. So she could just scoot off and I'll finish the rest of the show on my own. But Olivia, does that sound good? Okay, perfect. But before we do, guys from the Critical Compass, why don't you let everybody know how they can see your work, follow along with your commentary?
So we're primarily active on YouTube and on X. Our X handle is at the Crit Comp. That's just how we had to do it for the characters. YouTube channel is at the Critical Compass. We have a Rumble. We're on Spotify as well. So we're pretty easy to find. But hey, thanks so much for the opportunity. This has been really cool, and yeah, we'd love to do it again one day. We'd love to have you on our show too, if we can.
Yeah, no problem.
A few minutes of your time.
For sure. Thanks, guys, so much, and we'll have you back on again very soon. Does that work?
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's great to be on. So
yeah, thanks, guys. Great first appearance. Let's hit an ad break, and then we'll come back, and it'll just be me winging it. Great. Thanks, guys.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same rhetoric.
We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
Are you 18 to 30, curious, ambitious, and tired of cookie-cutter journalism? Then listen up. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. I'm the chief reporter at Rebel News, but I'm also the president of the Independent Press Gallery. And I'm excited to tell you that applications are now open for the 2026 Student Journalism Conference, a 3-day, all-expenses-paid training experience in Toronto, August 28th to 30th. That means your travel, your hotel, and your meals are all covered. You just bring the drive. This isn't a lecture hall snooze fest. It's hands-on reporting, real-world skills, practical training, and direct access to experienced independent journalists who know how the media landscape in Canada actually works. This year's theme is citizenship and civil liberties, two issues that matter now more than ever. You'll also compete in a live collaborative reporting challenge, creating a real journalism project with a chance to win the grand prize. And here's the big part. Past graduates are now working in independent media organizations all over Canada, building careers, breaking stories, and making a difference. Only 20 applicants will be selected, so the competition is real. Deadline to apply is June 14th. If you've got grit, curiosity, and something to say, apply now at studentjournalismconference.com. Canada needs more journalists who ask tough questions. Maybe one of them is you. All right, I'll finish the show the last 13 or so minutes on my own. Big thanks to our friends over at the Critical Compass, and of course, my beloved Lise Merle. We'll see her back here on Tuesday. Sometimes Elizabeth May, the Green Party leader who leaves the Green Party and then she comes back, and then she leaves again and then she comes back. Sometimes she's right. It's true. She doesn't like the new Governor General, Louise Arbour, who for some reason frequently attacked the state of Israel. And she couldn't even say really if she were a monarchist. You're the king, I guess, the king's representative in Canada, and you're taking that job and you're getting paid for that job. You best damn well be a monarchist. And she couldn't even say if she was. Now, Elizabeth May is saying, I guess, some sane things, which we should remark on, right? Like, so when she pulls herself out of the fog of madness and says something salient, we should all stop and watch. Like, we should maybe take this day off work next year, because we should celebrate this for her and also for us. So let's watch.
Can we get your thoughts on the new Governor General appointment when the sirens are
I just won the office pool because I predicted Louise Arbour would be the new Governor General as soon as I heard the Prime Minister say, a woman who's thoroughly bilingual and appropriate. I wrote my little group, I said, it's going to be Louise Arbour. And I bet that's why she couldn't come and testify at the C11 committee, which is dealing with her recommendations on how to handle sexual abuse victims within the military. And there's been some discussion in Parliament, well, Louise Arbour wouldn't testify. I was like, I know why she didn't testify. She's the next Governor General. So I think it's a thoroughly appropriate choice. C'est un très bon choix. Je pense qu'elle serait un très bon gouverneur général. Le chef d'État du Canada, je suis tellement heureuse avec le choix.
in English? I think we only heard you on how you won the office pool and why that was great. But can you tell us about why you think that she would be a good pick?
Obviously, I mean, at the moment I heard the parameters of a Canadian woman who's thoroughly bilingual. You know, that's not just going to be anybody. And I think Mary Simon has been a fantastic Governor General. Nothing but respect and gratitude for her service as Governor General. But Louise Arbour is a former Supreme Court judge, a huge history in human rights. She's obviously a great, like on the category of great Canadian, no matter what. And now she's our Governor General. It's an excellent choice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good. I was wrong. I thought Liz May said something sane, but Liz May's back to being Liz May. Apparently she does like Louise Arbour. And that's why I was surprised when I thought that she didn't like her, because Louise Arbour is a very Green Party-esque Governor General. She's not sure if she likes the institution of the monarchy. She's happy to take the salary, though. She thinks of our military as a bunch of, what did she say, white men running around with guns. well, Louise, I've got some news for you. We're hiring a bunch of permanent residents from all over the world now as hired mercenaries because we can't recruit people. And Louise Arbour doesn't like the state of Israel. So she's very Green Party. So that's why I was surprised. But no, Liz May loves her. And she's perfectly bilingual, Liz May says, which of course is what keeps Albertans out of the Governor General chair. But Westerners in general. It's one of those institutions we have very little access to, including the Supreme Court, because there's no purpose in us being bilingual here. It doesn't make any sense. It makes more sense for Albertans to learn Ukrainian, culturally speaking, than it does to learn French. But anyways, to WEF vixens just talking about how much they like each other, I guess. Francois Philippe Champagne, Mark Carney cabinet minister, he knows what the real challenge is facing the world right now. It's not trade, it's not Iran. This is our finance minister. So it's not our spiraling debt, which is driving up inflation and, you know, forcing Albertans to want to disconnect themselves from the anchor that we call Canada. It's not, you know, rising anti-Semitism. It's not, you know, the devolution of the way things were in the world. It's not even Russia, although we keep giving Ukraine a bunch of money to fight Russia. He knows who the real bad guy is, and it's me and my comfortable SUV, and you at home trying to heat your home when you woke up this morning in Alberta and it was only 5 degrees. Let's listen.
What you see across the world, you know, we have a lot of issues right now, but, you know, fighting climate change still remains the issue of our century. And therefore, everyone is trying to electrify as much as possible. We call that the electric stack. So it's gonna be there in transportation. Is it gonna take a bit more time? Yes, that's what we see, but I still believe it's our North Star. What you see
our
across
North
the world,
Star,
you know,
our guiding light. He says that we're moving towards electrification. Now, largely the Liberals have invested gajillions of your dollars in electrification of transportation, the entire transportation industry, vehicles, cars you don't want, which cause more wear and tear on the road just because of sheer weight of the batteries inside. I don't know if those batteries go on fire as they did with the, I think it was the Volt. Good luck fighting those fires. The dangerous gases that they give off. Best of luck to our firefighters. And despite this issue being our North Star, according to our finance minister, the guy in charge of our economy, Mark Carney himself acknowledges the auto industry is challenged, you think, after Honda suspended a $15 billion electric vehicle plant. So this is, he's saying it's challenges due to US tariffs. I think it's challenges due to lack of demand. Nobody wants these things. His comments come amid reporting from a Japanese outlet that Honda is indefinitely suspending plans to build a $15 billion electric vehicle plant in Ontario. He blames Donald Trump. In May 2025, it was sort of signaled that this project was in danger of being canceled. Honda said it would delay the project for 2 years. And now they've killed it just a few months later. So it was supposed to come online in 2028. But when you have no buyers for the electric vehicles you want to produce, why build a plant? Why invest $15 billion to produce a widget nobody wants to buy? Honda made that business choice. And of course, Mark Carney is blaming Donald Trump. So there's that. I wonder when they're going to run out of using that excuse. Are we going to run out of it? I don't know. One last thing I want to touch on before I hit the chats. The Cowichan decision is spreading. Now, the Cowichan decision is a decision that the federal government decided not to intervene on. The British Columbia government didn't bother to tell the residents affected when it basically threw land title into complete disarray by giving the Cowichan Band control over vast chunks of the lower mainland. And then it sort of had a knock-on effect with other decisions, where another Indian band has decided that they, well, in conjunction with the British Columbia government, that they have control over certain waterways and what is done on those waterways. And now it's spreading outside of the country to Alaska. So there's Indigenous bands in Southeast Alaska. They're referencing the Gitxtala Dripa win. And they're citing BC's Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, that's DRIPA. And they are claiming Indigenous sovereignty and saying that they have historic rights to certain portions of British Columbia. So we have Alaskan bands now pointing to BC legislation and BC court decisions and saying that they have historic rights to parts of British Columbia. And now they're saying that there was a lack of consultation and expedited environmental assessments for projects in British Columbia, which are contravening their rights under the Canadian Constitution. They're not Canadians. And the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So this is really bad. This is a sovereignty crisis now, because now we have American Indigenous bands claiming that Canadian land is their territory and citing Canadian rulings that have turned over land to Indigenous bands. What did these people think would happen? It's just a free-for-all in British Columbia. British Columbia, the government deserves this, but the people sure don't. It's terrible. And I wonder what's going to happen. And we see the courts siding with Indigenous bands. So what would make this Indigenous band different? If we're saying that you have historical rights to this land, and so here it is, what would stop a band that used to be within Canadian territory making the same claims? If we don't care about who owns the land today, which apparently we don't. We, meaning the royal we, as in the federal government and the provincial government. If they don't care who owns the land today, why should the band from Alaska care either? What makes their claim different? Because they're American? Well, at one point, apparently, according to them, they were within Canadian territory. This is a disaster. All right, let's get into the chats. I don't think I have a cringe today, and I'm not sure if I need one without my friend Lise to laugh at it. So we'll start here. JToma 8318, $10. What is the truth on Canada's exit tax on citizens emigrating? Nothing yet, although there was an idea floated of $500,000. So if you were like, I'm out of here, I need to divest of Canada, I can't, it was for like businesses relocating outside of the country. Now, if that were the case, some businesses would actually just pay it because they could, because it still made more economic sense than staying in Canada and dying. But it's not quite a thing yet. Seeing posts say that there's a minimum of like 5K. Chat AI says it doesn't exist, saying there's a capital gains tax on leaving. So the idea was floated, doesn't exist yet. Independent Alberta, because it's $5. The more Carney talks, the easier it is to offer a better way for Albertans. Yeah, I hope he never shuts up. I hope he never shuts up. He's going to be a great separatist lightning rod, isn't he? It's Paul Newman, gives us $5, says, if Premier Smith allows the courts to negate the voices of 700,000 Albertans, then we will organize to remove her as leader, just like Jason Kenney. Yeah, I'm not worried about Danielle Smith. I'm not worried about Danielle Smith. Why? Because there will already be an independence question on the ballot thanks to Thomas Lukaszuk and the Forever Canada losers. So their question is also an independence question. Whether those numpties like it or not, that is what their petition asked. So we'll be okay. And also Danielle Smith can just put any question she wants on the referendum in 2019 or in October 19th, 2026. She has already put a whole slate of immigration questions on there. If the court holds this up, I would anticipate that she will say, we as a government will advance this neutrally without taking a position to allow Albertans to have a voice while this is held up in court. So I'm not too worried. You'll have your independence question one way or another. Independent Alberta, $5. Paul Hale, Alberta Elections Commissioner Paula Hale, I'm sorry, revealed she can't rule out that the list didn't come from Canada Post or a public information broker. In other words, Nothing Burger. Oh, that's the Centurion Project list. So I'll give you 20 seconds on this Centurion Project. Centurion Project, separate from Stay Free Alberta, independence group, advancing the ideas of independence. They had access. I don't know how. I have my speculations, but it's not worth saying publicly. I think everybody can sort of put together their own ideas. They had access, allegedly, to an electoral list that political parties have access to. So that's why you're getting the odd text message to your phone from an unknown number saying, hey, this is Naheed Nenshi. That's that list. And they were allegedly using it. And anyways, everybody's burning their hair that this is a data breach, whatever. I don't so much care. But there are multiple ways that they could have got access to that list, allegedly. I'm not all that concerned about it. I think it was, if it happened the way that I think it is, just a big, huge mistake. Doesn't help anybody. Over at Act for Alberta, we are like religious about following the rules, like to a T. I'm not cut out for prison. I'm just not, even white collar prison. I don't want to go there. I don't want the fines. And so at Act for Alberta, we're just, we lawyer everything, absolutely everything. And so just playing in the gray area, someone's going to get you, or at least they're going to try to get you. And if they try to get you and they don't get you, what did you lose? Time. We don't have time. So just try to be above board, everybody. That's all I have to say. P. Schofield 10, $5. You all might want to spearhead an effort to explain and promote the separatist movement across the province, kind of like modern day version of the Federalist Papers. Not a bad idea. Except from our polling data, people don't actually care about the logistics of separation. They just feel super mistreated, which is different than Quebec. Quebec, they were really concerned about what happens next. How do we do this? What happens to our pensions? All those things. Our polling data shows that Albertans are like, yeah, we can figure that out, which is what that's the Alberta mindset. We'll just, whatever. We're not scared of hard work. That's all. Look, if some federal bureaucrat is able to do it, sure as hell, we can do it just fine. So we're not really concerned about all of that. It's just, for us, it's the harnessing the anger of even the people who are a hard no. And J Toma 8318, $5. Does Alberta intend to remain in the Commonwealth if you gain independence? I think that's for Albertans to decide. I like the idea of remaining within the Commonwealth, because I'm a conservative. I want to conserve history. I don't want to jettison it. And that, those are our roots. Those are the people. Yes, many Americans settled here in southern Alberta, but a lot of Albertans were people from the Commonwealth. And yeah, I kind of like that structure. I don't know, but I'm open to ideas. Again, that's an after question, not a now question. Okay, let's wrap the show. I've been giving her here for 20 minutes by myself. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to our panelists from the Critical Compass. Special thanks to my buddy Lise Merle for being on the show today. I think I'm back tomorrow with Tamara Ugolini. Thanks, Olivia, for running the show for us. Those of you who pitched in to keep the lights on around here, and those of you who interact with our content to help us get higher in the algorithm, so the algorithm shoves us in front of more people. I appreciate you for that. We'll see you tomorrow. And as we say here on the show, if you find us offensive, maybe don't find us at all.